For this spooky season episode, I'm going to tell you about Lake Lanier. In the early 1950s, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers wanted to create a lake to provide Atlanta, Georgia, and its surrounding counties with power and water. The area where they wanted to locate the lake was land that was already home to about 700 farming families, who ended up quite reluctantly selling 56,000 acres of land to the government. The government then built a dam on the Chattahoochee River to form the lake, and as the waters rose by 1956, people who had been moved from the area watched everything they left behind vanish under the water. Now, the government had removed, or at least claimed they removed, large structures like barns and homes and large trees. But in the classic case that always leads to hauntings, they claim to have removed marked graves, but it was likely many unmarked ones were left behind. Also, there was an entire town called Oscarville that was not demolished before the lake was filled, and its ruins still rest at the bottom of the lake. Divers have reported finding fully intact streets, walls, and houses, making it the single most dangerous underwater surface in the United States. Let's talk about Oscarville. The town of Oscarville was once a bustling turn-of-the-century community and a beacon for Black culture in the South. At the time, 1,100 Black people owned land and operated businesses in Forsyth County alone, many of those in Oscarville. On September 9th of 1912, an 18-year-old white woman named May Crow was sexually assaulted and murdered near Brown's Bridge on the Chattahoochee River bank, right next to Oscarville. May Crow's murder was pinned on 4 young Black men who happened to live in the area nearby. They included siblings Oscar and Trussie Daniel, ages 18 and 22, their 16-year-old cousin Ernest Knox, and their 24-year-old friend Robert Edwards. Edwards was arrested for Crow's rape and murder and taken to jail in Cumming, Georgia, in the seat of Forsyth County. It might be Forsyth. I don't care. Sorry, Georgians. The next day, a white mob came to the jail and pulled Edwards from his jail cell. They shot him, they dragged him through the streets, and they hanged him from a telephone pole outside the courthouse. A month later, Ernest Knox and Oscar Daniel appeared in court for the rape and murder of May Crow. They were found guilty by the jury in about an hour. About 5,000 people gathered to watch these teenage boys be hanged. Trussie Daniel's charges were dismissed, but it is widely believed now that all of the boys were innocent of the crime. Following the lynching of Edwards, white mobs known as night riders, not to be confused with the 80s TV show Knight Rider, please, totally different concept. These night riders started going door to door across Forsyth County with torches and guns. They burned down Black businesses and churches and demanded that all Black citizens leave the county. So, Oscarville was pretty much depopulated by force There were still some people, but, when that starts happening, they were pretty much pushed out of their own community. And by submerging Oscarville underneath this new lake, the government entities literally washed away the racist history. Not that that leaves no other racist history in Georgia, but just this one part is under the water. Due to technology not being all that great years ago, locating these unmarked graves that were under the water, well, before they let loose with the water, including graves that had lost their markers over time, it was almost impossible to find them. Some of the left behind graves could be from Civil War times or even of Native American origin from pre-colonial and ancient times. Over the decades, when the lake's water levels dropped during drought, submerged roads, tire parts, and other artifacts have been exposed. And we are at the point where this is Lake Lanier. That's what they named it. And also over the years, divers in Lake Lanier have reported some creepy stuff beneath the murky waters. Some tell stories of gigantic catfish, which isn't that creepy, but in 2017, a diver named Buck Buchanan told the local media that he sometimes felt body parts in the lake during his many excursions. He said, quote, "You reach out into the dark and you feel an arm or a leg and it doesn't move." So it's like stuck down there. Whether or not these are people that, I have a hair stuck to my lip and it's very annoying. Whether or not these are people that drowned in the lake and their bodies are kind of stuck down there in all the debris, or if these are graves that have become unearthed over time. Either option is pretty creepy. I'd like to find a neither when I'm swimming. Thanks. There was a Discovery Channel show called Expedition X that showed that there are at least 20 cemeteries with headstones and graves still at the bottom of the lake that were never removed. Since the creation of Lake Lanier, there have been around 700 deaths, many of which are considered strange, they're unexplained, and some are unsolved. About 200 of those deaths have occurred since 1994, and at least 27 of those people, I don't know why I'm leaning. At least 27 of those people have never been found. Their bodies have never been found. The lake attracts somewhere between 8 and 10 million visitors every year and generates about 5 million a year in revenue. And those are kind of old numbers, so it's probably even more now. The lake's most famous ghost is known as the Lady of the Lake, and her origin story is a tragic tale from 1958. Delia Mae Parker Young, that's a lot of names for one woman, Delia Mae Parker Young, and her friend Susie Roberts, short name, were driving to a local roadhouse in Dawsonville, Georgia. As they were crossing the Lake Lanier Bridge, Susie lost control of the car and it ran off the bridge. The women in their car disappeared down to the bottom of the lake. A year later, a fisherman out on the lake came across a decomposed, unrecognizable body floating near the bridge. At the time, no one could identify who it belonged to. It wasn't until 1990 when officials discovered a 1950s Ford sedan at the bottom of the lake with the remains of Susie Roberts inside, that they were able to identify the body 3 decades later as Delia Mae Parker Young's. But locals already knew who she was. They had reportedly seen her since the night of the crash, still in her blue dress, wandering near the bridge at night with handless arms, waiting to drag unsuspecting lake goers to the bottom without hands. So I guess it's a ghost story. It doesn't have to be logical. And yes, when Delia's body was found, her hands were gone. She did have hands previously, but when her body was found, no hands. Probably fish, sea creatures, had a little munchy. So it happens. Circle of life and all that. Though the reason it took her so long to be found is that the murkiness of the water, because of and in addition to the debris in the water, makes it hard to find bodies of those who fall in and drown. Delia's car itself was found wedged in between 2 trees. So there's still trees down there. Even if you cut the trees will grow underwater. Not all kinds, but some trees. And it was just like the trees had grown, still grown, after the water was filled up, the lake was filled up, and the car was like wedged in between those trees, some of the trees. That's a sight. Imagine diving and you see that. I'm scared of diving. I've been snorkeling. I'm not scared of snorkeling, but diving, you never know what you're going to see down there. And you don't want to panic when you're in this whole scuba suit. You don't want to freak out in that situation, and I would. So, yeah. Just this year, 2023, in July, 3 people died at Lake Lanier. A 61-year-old man identified as Tracy Stewart was found in 46 feet of water after drowning while swimming. I imagine they mean he was found 46 feet down. My sources are below. Some of them seem like they're written by AI, so forgive me. I'm going to go ahead and say he was found 46 feet below the surface of the water. He had drowned while swimming. That same day that Tracy Stewart drowned, a 27-year-old man named Leonardo Martinez was swimming from a boat when he went under and did not resurface, and his body was recovered in August. A 24-year-old man named Thomas Milner drowned and was possibly electrocuted after he entered the water and was heard screaming for help. First responders pulled Milner out of the water and took him to the hospital, but he did succumb to his injuries the next day. These modern accidents probably had something to do with alcohol. In fact, as of May of this year, the Margaritaville restaurant at Lanier Islands, which I guess is a little resort area thing, it will no longer allow swimming in the lake at the restaurant. So it sounds like guests of the restaurant were having food and plenty of drinks and then jumping into the lake. Mixing alcohol with a lake that wants to kill you is a terrible idea. Many people who visit the lake say it has a dark and foreboding feel to it, even if they don't know its tragic history. But like I said, Lake Lanier still has millions of visitors every year, so odds are there are going to be some tragedies. Cursed, haunted, or not, Nature doesn't care about you having a good time, and it never will. You should always keep your guard up around bodies of water. Just because it's not an ocean with waves and, tides and undertow doesn't mean it's not dangerous. Leave the drinks on shore and wear your darn life vest. You can have fun on the lake without joining the legion of the dead below. I promise. Okay, bye.